Welcome to episode number 252 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast, recording on November the 10th, 2024. My name is Eric, host of the show based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, apparently a unicorn believer and connoisseur, because somebody has gotten into the show notes here and written a bunch of funny things, and computer geek as a first responder, witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events, and started a small preparedness company to help people get better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
And I'm Jeff. I am not a unicorn believer. I'm based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, ham radio operator, general overall handyman, and weather nerd. Yeah, I guess I don't know what I'm missing, right?
You have no idea until you've checked out unicorns. Just saying.
Sure. My name is Pierre. I'm a tactical beard owner, base t-shirt merchant, government critique, and the reason we hit the explicit button.
It's true.
I'm Terry, live in the city of Central Ontario, official Grand Poobah of the annual Preppers Meet, starving indie author, terrible hunter, pathetic fisherman, proud Ford owner. I got two now, two Fords, proud Ford owner twice.
Between the two of them, does that mean it kind of runs?
They both run. No issues, man. That's good. It's good
like
to go.
Downhill when you take the park and brake off, right?
Oh, no.
Even if you leave the park and brake on.
If you want to help support the show, buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All the proceeds help cover our podcast costs.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and submit a review wherever you found us. We want your feedback, good or bad. We also invite you to reach out and tell us about something you learned this week. Email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some frigid content for you in this episode. I'm going to start with some relevant news. We'll update you on our personal prep since the last episode. We're going to get into the main topic. And yeah, we are talking about winter because, hate to say it, it's almost here.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, moving to the news. I've got an article here. It's from the government of Ontario. It just talks about the fact that there's a new $5 million investment that will help equip municipalities and organizations with essential resources, equipment, and training to better prepare for natural disasters and emergencies. So it's a fund that different municipalities are able to apply to get some funding to help with those things. So kind of nice to see those be available.
Am I the only one that finds that really low for the amount of municipalities and organizations in this province that would probably benefit from some of this? Like, I find that number very low.
That's
a valid point. That's a valid point. At least there's something there.
Yes.
I was just going to say it's better than nothing compared to, I mean, I was talking about this with somebody a while ago, and, you know, back when I was much younger and growing up in like the late 70s, 80s, that kind of thing, it was not, no, that's Scott. That's not me. That's Scott.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You know, people were preppers without being preppers. Like, I remember we lived on the farm and we had a humongous garden every year, and every fall, you know, mom was canning. It was pickles. It was, you know, beets and all that stuff. But we really just did it. It wasn't, we didn't consider ourselves preppers. We didn't. And then, you know, kind of the 90s, the 2000s, you know, people kind of raised up in that time. They sort of got away from that because they could go to, you know, their town had 5 grocery stores and 3 corner stores, and they could just go and buy whatever they wanted whenever they needed it. And there wasn't. And I think now with everything that's been going on, and, you know, I'm thinking more along the lines of like the cost of living, where, you know, you could go and spend $250 at the grocery store and feed the family for a month. Now you go there and you spend $250 and you're lucky if you get 10 days of food. So, and, you know, more and more people aren't preparing. They're not. And, you know, in the job that I was in, of course, I knew that firsthand, and of how many people just relied on everybody else for them. And I think the governments finally are starting to realize that, considering the bigger storms and things that have gone on. So good for them. Yeah, it's not a lot of money, but it's better than nothing.
And I'll play the other side of the 5 billion. I would rather see a bigger investment and it be better managed to be able to help maybe not all municipalities, but let's say some municipalities that are higher risk, than waste 5 million and the resources not be there for those that you know what I mean? Like it's just, oh, here's 5 million, we're going to invest in it, but it doesn't benefit anybody because there's so little allotment that they get half training, half the resources. Like they need part A and part B for something to work, and they only have the funds to get part A. I'm like, you're still in the same spot because you don't have everything. So it's a step in the right direction, but I also feel like it's half a step back, because if there's not enough resources for the actual equipment, the training and everything for people to actually benefit from it, right? Maybe we can't do it across the whole province, but let's say, northern communities that are more prone to power outages and search and rescue and things like that, compared to we don't need more, safe Uber drivers in Toronto to get food when their stove goes out, right? If
it's true. Good point.
I mean, it's a step in the right direction, but I also feel like we took maybe a step back. We'll see if we actually get access to how this 5 million was spent and how it benefited maybe some places, and hopefully didn't hamper many places.
Yep, it's a good point.
Yep.
What do you got, Jeff?
Well, I've got a couple things here. So speaking of the weather and being the weather nerd that I am, and it's this time of season, Colorado got pummeled by an early season blizzard. Places were getting in excess of 40 to 50 inches of snow. And it went on for a few days. I'll talk about it a little bit in my weather blurb, but I was watching one of the storm chasers that I follow, and he was there, and he's got a Tahoe, 4-wheel drive, big lug winter tires and tire chains, and he kept getting stuck. So, and of course, that this time of year, it's right around the freezing mark. So it's that heavy wet snow. So it was bringing down trees, bringing down power lines, stuff like that. It certainly was an interesting few days for those poor folks out there. So it's coming.
A lot of inches of snow.
I could just imagine how many times he got stuck if he had a Ford, though.
I don't think he would have even gone.
Just starts.
Probably would have started and still be in the driveway.
It's best not to go out, right? Just stay home and.
Although his buddy who was there with him drives an Explorer, so.
Yeah.
But anyways, they all got around.
You end up pulling all these Toyotas out of the ditch. Takes all your time away from you, and then you can't get done what you want to get done.
Oh boy.
And on to the next one. BC. So this just, and it's not specific to BC. It just seems port workers in BC have gone on strike. So if anybody remembers, last year we had the West Coast U.S. port workers go on strike. Then in the fall of this year, the East Coast port workers went on strike. They cut an agreement with the government. They sort of found middle ground on the wages, although I think they still got a damn sweet deal out of it. But there's other things to tie up, so they agreed to postpone any more strike action until January to try to come to a full contract resolution. They haven't yet. We'll have to see what happens. But now the port workers in BC have decided to go on strike, and apparently the talks, they've been on strike now for 3 days, and apparently the talks have broken off again. So who knows how long they may stay off, whether at some point, I hate to keep saying it, at some point the government has to step in, because, maybe your ask is, I don't know how to word this. Everybody deserves a fair pay. I have no problem with that. Everybody deserves a decent pay for a decent day's work. But when you're going out and asking for 50 and 60 and 70% pay raises. I get it. Things are tough, but that's just all going to trickle down to the rest of us at some point through higher prices. So anyways, I'll stop my rant there before I say something that gets me kicked off.
Where's the boot button for Jeff?
Do I have a podcast for you?
Mm-hmm.
So I put one in. As we mostly know, we're Canadian. This one is related to the US. The Orange Man won in the election last week. So I was thinking it'd be good to let's keep an eye out on trade with the US, tariffs, see if it affects any trade that we have with the US, goods going in, goods going out, see maybe just mindful of keeping an eye on that and see if it's going to affect us.
Oh, it will for sure. I guarantee you he'll want, and this kind of puts me in a bit of a quandary. I might get kicked off. Anyways, so Quebec wants.
Here we go. Out with it, Jeff.
To separate that, they're separatists. The bloc is they don't want to be Canadian, whatever. I don't like them. I don't agree with them. But the one thing that I find myself agreeing with them on is they want to have some kind of a moratorium or agreement or something on what is a no touchable. So if Trump comes back and says we're going to redo NAFTA, hey, here's the untouchables. And it was dairy. There were a couple other things. And
it fits Quebec. It's probably maple syrup as well.
Yep. Right. And I'm kind of on their side. I'm like,
I don't disagree.
Why should we be getting flooded with cheap American milk and putting our own farmers out of business, especially when the milk producers in the States, they have some small, like family farms and that kind of stuff, but the vast majority of their stuff is mega farming. Like somebody's got a herd of a couple thousand cows and they pushed all the little people out, and I can't verify it, but a lot of people are saying a lot of the milk that comes from the States, even more than Canada, is pumped up with hormones and antibiotics and everything else, and where we've got a bit more rules around that. So, I don't have a problem with that. Trump's got his protectionist thing. Okay, fine. There's nothing. You want to be protectionist? There's nothing wrong with Canadians being protectionist then too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I agree. So, but let's keep an eye on it and see what comes about it and see what it affects, and hopefully we don't get caught with their pants down again.
It's just like again. Just not even going to go there. Don't even want to know. Are you wearing pants?
Do you want me to get up?
No. We'll be hitting more than the explicit button for that.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
That's right. I forgot. This is YouTube, not OnlyFans. Never mind.
Yeah.
All right, Terry.
Okay, so tomorrow's Remembrance Day, November 11th. So please get out and show your support. And the National Post had an interesting article today in the news regarding what Canadians think of pride in our country's military, and it's not very good. So it's worth having a look.
It was probably because it was misleading that they thought pride was a different pride.
Oh, that could have been too.
Yeah, and I mean, we were not going to talk about the news articles where they asked people from the military to not show up in uniform to put a wreath down on behalf of the military.
Yeah. I saw that. That was ridiculous.
And I was just like, I really want to put that one, but I was like, we're going to go on some side tangent. They walked
it back. They walked it back within probably 12 hours because
the flag.
Because it was ridiculous.
Yes, it was the school. The schools were saying, well, some kids may not be Canadian and they may come from other countries, and in those other countries, the uniform are really, really, really bad, and it might scare the kids. And
yes, but due to people that have done all those sacrifices in those uniforms, you were able to come here and have to worry about other things. Yeah. So we
and it's
probably
a
side tangent.
Yeah, well, we should stop
school's
here.
Job. School's job to educate them on the rights and wrongs of that, right?
100%.
So that's their job.
Parents do.
That's a whole other side tangent we're not touching. Let's keep going.
Yes, let's carry on.
Let's move into what we've done lately for preps, and we'll start out with Jeff.
I honestly didn't do a lot this week. I just I did some yard cleanup and topped up my fuel stores, and that's all I did. I mean, I did lots of other things, but in terms of prepping stuff, that's it.
Well, that's less than zero, Jeff, so it's good. For myself, got out to the range, put some holes in paper, and played a little radio. And technically, you could use that too, Jeff, because you did come out for a little bit with me. So,
yeah, I did, but I didn't get on the air, so I just kind of left it at that.
Yeah,
but
this is true,
I could have.
But, yeah.
As for myself, there was a lot of travel with work, with weather changes where I was going. One of the times I traveled, I was an idiot and didn't look at the weather, and I got there and I'm like, it's really fucking cold, and I didn't bring anything to like keep me warm.
The explicit button.
Yeah. So yeah, planning a little better, swapping out the few things I bring in my bag, maybe an extra pair of socks, sweaters, this, that. Did some food rotation. Started making a list of stuff I haven't seen in a little while that I'm like, with the weather change coming, I was like, yeah, I haven't seen this all summer, or hey, winter's coming, I haven't seen that. So trying to find those things before the time is needed to get them done, or when we need it. Still going with house renos. Got a big portion of upstairs done in the last, I think it was about 2 weeks ago. Got the baseboards down. Daughter's room's all done, other than like fill the holes for all the nails. All the flooring upstairs is done. We shimmed all the door frames. Latches actually work now, and all that stuff. So yeah, did that for a day or two. Played Handy Manny. I really want to know where he buys his tools that do all the work for him, because some of the stuff I was just like, man, I had to like cut 6 times. Yeah, it's a disaster. I just want the stuff to do it, but that's starting to make sense up there. So it was a nice learning curve for some of the stuff I haven't done. So yeah, it's about all.
Cool. It's always good to learn a new skill.
Yeah.
Well, me, I rotated all my fuel stores and did a little vehicle prep for the winter. Got everything oiled underneath just to make sure they get the rust away, and did the brakes on the on one of my Fords. Oh, and I was exercising my skills as a terrible hunter this week. I was out and of course didn't get anything, but there's always hope.
You have to actually get to you have to get to the camp in order to be able to get the deer.
I got there. I took one of the Fords. It was no
Took
problem.
the bus. Got okay.
Oh, so it was in the backyard, is what you're saying. Okay, gotcha.
All right. Well, with that, how about we move into the main topic? And this evening, shockingly, we are talking about winter preparedness, because Old Man Winter is on his way. Yes. And it was time that we just stopped avoiding it, because before you know it, snow is going to be on the ground. It's not going to be rain anymore. And you're going to have to break the shovels out and the snow blowers and all that other fun stuff that comes along with winter. So we figured we'd do the harsh reality episode tonight, remind everyone that Old Man Winter is on his way, and just talk about a couple of things that you can switch over or do to get maybe a little bit better prepared for it, because you can't stop it. So I figure we'll run it the same way we usually do. Panelists can just jump in and say what you want to say as we go, and I'll just kind of kick things off with a couple talking points, and we'll see where we end up in roughly an hour, which I'm sure will be interesting.
Yes.
But the first thing you got to turn your mind to winter preparedness, and I actually just recently went through this, is your home heating. Right? I just ran into a problem. I think I talked about it a couple episodes ago, where I went to go turn the furnace on, didn't start, and we were lucky because it wasn't overly cold yet. There was a couple of days where it got a little bit chilly, but we had our backup fireplace here that we can use to heat the house and keep things warm. It's not as nice as the furnace, obviously, because the furnace is good at what it does and it keeps all the rooms at a constant temperature. The fireplace, not as much, but it was, we were able to kind of step back into that secondary plan, keep the chill out of the air with the fireplace, and things worked. But having that secondary source of heat to back up the primary is always a good thing to have, and test both out before the snow actually flies. We were lucky that the furnace only ended up costing us $600 to fix. It was going to be about 4,000, but we got all the parts covered under warranty. We were 8 days past warranty.
Oh, and they did honor it?
And they honored it.
Nice, because I had heard that you were just past it last, so
yeah,
I'm happy.
8 days past.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. They honored it after a little bit of fight from the service company that came to do it all. The Carrier is the company for the furnace, and they actually did end up honoring it. So
it's nice to hear that companies
thank goodness
still do a little bit.
Yeah.
Here and there.
Nice. I don't see why we had to fight to begin with, but hey, either way,
they had a line and you were past it.
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty much. Yeah,
I see both sides, but happy it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out quite well, and but that's the whole spiel. There is just having some kind of backup heating, whether that be a wood stove, propane heaters, space heaters, anything like that, and understand what their limitations are. Right. So if you fire up that wood stove or the propane heater or your space heater or whatever, and you think it's going to heat your whole house, and it doesn't, have a plan for how are you going to just bring everybody into the area that it can heat. Right? Because a lot of people will assume it'll just do everything that your primary will do. Maybe it won't. Test it out and know what it can and can't do.
So before we go too far, you mentioned propane heaters inside.
Somewhere Alan is happy right now.
We should make sure that you have CO detectors in your house that are also battery backup. They are pretty much all now. If they're not, they're probably expired. But it's something, maybe cracking a window, something, a fan in front of it, pushing it out, sucking all that out. Yes, you're technically counteracting heating and cooling because you've got a window open, but yes, be very mindful. We've all heard the stories of people passing away due to not understanding that. So
you're not going to have to worry about heating your place if you're dead.
Yes.
Yeah. And a couple quick other things. You've mentioned in there, but especially if your primary and or secondary heat source is wood, heat primarily with wood. Inspect your stove first. Check your fire bricks. Make sure none of them are cracked. Check your door gaskets. Again, make sure they properly seal. As Pierre mentioned, the CO problem and all that. And make sure that your chimney is clean. Whether you do it, you bring somebody else in to do it. I talked to again another friend of mine. He's a volunteer fireman at a local rural fire department. And he said their almost busiest time of the year is the fall, the first cold snap, and everybody fires up their stoves. He said we're running around doing chimney fires. So make sure that your chimney's properly cleaned. It's in shape. You haven't had critters get in there over the summer, build a nest, block the chimney. So,
and
same applies. Go ahead, Pierre.
I was like, even if you have someone come in and do it, you don't feel 100% confident saying you're going to do it properly. Maybe learn the basics that when you get it cleaned, and if there's that time span in between, you can at least go just double check there's no blockage. Maybe not. Make sure you cleaned everything properly, but just make sure there's no blockage. Those kits to do the chimney are probably way cheaper than having to rebuild your house and fight your insurance. But if it's not a skill you want to practice and save, absolutely, get someone to come in and either learn it from them or get them to just, hey, they did this thing, and then you're just checking for blockages with, the 100 and some odd bucks you bought, and peace of mind might not be a bad thing for that.
Yeah, and same applies even for your primary. If it's like a gas furnace or natural gas furnace or propane or whatever, making sure it's in good working order and all the venting is also clean and free of obstructions and such is important as well. It's more so important with the wood burning stuff because there's definitely build up there, but you want to check your primary as well if it's a furnace of some sort.
If you rely on propane, double checking your tank level, expiry date, planning. Something happens, propane isn't coming. Just like natural gas, eventually, all that prime in there will run out. But doing what you can, maybe having a little bit of extra aside, always making sure weather's good, something's coming. Get that, even though you're sitting at 60%, hey, come top it up, come top it up, come top it up. I know when I worked on propane, they pretty much came, I think it was every 2 weeks in the winter. We didn't have much that ran during the summer, so they didn't really come around. They were like, just keep an eye on it and call, but they were around often. And when you're in town, I was like, top her up. I don't care if it's $20. I don't care if it's $300. I was like, if you're in town, top it up. So yeah, just be mindful of that. If
good point,
a disaster happens, that big propane tank you're used to, if you were only at 40% and you were like, I'm good, and something happens, right? That could be something. I
not
always
so good
say
anymore.
Yeah, if your propane for us was fantastic, company was fantastic rates, very friendly. Hey, if you paid your bill, next time they come around, they'd top your rate up. So yeah, we always made sure when you're in town, top it up. I don't care if it's $20 or whatever, but yeah, make sure you get either lock it in. We locked it in. We saved, thankfully. Yeah, it's just something.
That's always a bit of a gamble.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, it's a gamble where I'm like, you can already budget for it, because I was like, you already know the rate, you know how much you consume normally. So it's like, we can budget that. Sometimes you're like, oh, we could have saved $200, but sometimes you can be like, I saved $600. Like, look at the propane shortage a few years ago when
right.
The CN went on strike, like propane skyrocketed. And I'm sure everybody that locked in then was ecstatic.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a gamble. Do what you can.
Yep. And comment here from Justin. So it's nice to know I'm not the only weather nerd around. He said, being
so
a
you
weather
have a
nerd
second account on YouTube, is what you're saying.
When those bad, we're supposed to tell. Helped when those bad blasts here in Texas were able to touch up our preps before the great Texas freeze. 100%.
Yep.
Pay attention, know what's coming. Denny brought up a good point. Change your filters. Especially if you got a furnace, stuff like that. Change out your filters.
Then that's me. And the live chat also mentions the gas chimney rotted out. Had to replace it last month. So always good to keep an eye on things, right? You never know when they're going to fail on you.
Yeah, because all of a sudden you see funny colors and you're falling down the stairs.
Yeah. That's just a Saturday night, isn't it?
That's beside the point.
All right, then we can touch on
Justin Rogers is a ham radio operator too as well. So you got two good strikes going for you now.
I think you just got to come and join us on the panel there, Justin.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
What's your view on Orange Man? No, okay, sorry. Let's keep going.
That's tomorrow night.
Wrong day.
Yeah, wrong night. Sorry.
So emergency kits, for your house, for your car, for whatever other type of vehicle you may have, just time to swap out those supplies. Get ready for some extra power outages. Have some extra blankets, some extra lights, some non-perishable food, which is all things we already have kicking around. But that was a good time usually to check those things over, make sure that they're in good repair and all is operational. Toss a couple extra blankets in the car. You may or may not get stuck. Happens in the wintertime. Well, you got to leave the house in the Ford to actually get stuck.
Nothing wrong making sure in your car you've got some extra clothing, dry clothing. I carry a dry pair of socks, a sweatshirt, a 2 spare pair of gloves, that kind of stuff, because you never know, right? And
it
something gets wet, you are not going to get warm if your socks are wet and cold.
Just going to say, it's amazing what a fresh pair of socks will do to one spirit.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I always toss in a pair of those traction aids for your boots, the clip-on or strap-on ones like Yak's tracks, just in case the Ford gets stuck, or you have to go in the ditch to hook up to a Toyota to pull it out with the Ford. That could happen too, right? And it's slippery and you don't want to fall down and break a bone. That'd be bad. But they're handy and they're not that expensive.
Yeah,
so it's good to chuck a couple of those in.
They are very inexpensive. Those track-ons.
That's a good point.
I forgot. Okay, carry on. I forgot.
Right. I forgot where you were going. Yeah. It'll come back in a couple segments, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
There it is.
So, Jeff mentioned spare change of clothes and everything, right? Mm-hmm. So that is automatically in my vehicle, summer, winter, spring, fall, does not matter. Just due to what I do for a living, I fix equipment. It's only happened once. Thankfully, I had clothes. I got to a job site and, hey, it looks like it's leaking here. And I was like, okay, start it up, hydraulic line. Okay, let me see, is it a no-ring? Is it the line? Line blew up. I got covered in hydraulic oil. And I'm just like, oh, man. I was like, that can happen. Gas, diesel, anything. And I was just like, it's not like I'm 5 minutes from the house. It's like I had to drive like an hour and a half further than where I was that day. So I was like 2.5, 3 hours away from home because of traffic and everything. I was like, nothing sucks more than sitting in a vehicle with something damp on you, even in summer. Like winter, obviously, where's hypothermia and everything. But I'm like, just the comfortability is whatever. So I always have a change of clothes. But like, yeah, now it's like, okay, I have that change of regular clothes and it's build up from there. And change of clothes should be in your vehicle all the time. You never know. Your Ford broke down and you got out and slipped in mud. You just might have to change something.
It happened. Speaking of the Fords, even just winterizing your vehicle itself, checking your tires out, swapping your tires around to winter tires versus your all seasons. Your car batteries. I always, around this time of year, I'll put mine on the charger and just top it right up. Antifreeze levels, windshield washer fluid, because it's that time of year, you're going to start going through it again. And just regular maintenance to avoid the breakdowns, which I know is not going to help Terry at all. You can do all the regular maintenance he wants. Is what it is.
You're more on abnormal maintenance.
It's a cross we all have to bear, I'm afraid.
Well, not all of us. The rest of us don't drive Fords.
No, not you guys. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we're those people.
Yeah,
people that get places.
I don't know. You guys are keeping stuff from us.
Yeah. So I'll touch real quick on. You should have winter tires. So that's up for debate. We're not going to have that debate. You should have winter tires. Quick thing as you're doing that transition yourself, getting it somewhere. I know a lot of places store tires for you. If that's the case where you can't accommodate storing your 4 summer tires or winter tires or where you live, before going into the dealership, specifically on your front tires, crank the wheel left, right, and just grab your hand and rub it outside to inside and front to back as much as you can. And tires should not feel like your hand is going up and down. They should feel fairly smooth. They're not going to be perfect just because of the nubs, but if you start feeling those like crazy ups, downs, and everything, might lead to front end issues. You've got something loose. You might need an alignment. You might need a ball joint. You might need whatever it is. Good time of year to check your brakes if you do them yourself. Keep an eye on that, or your pads low. But yeah, just a feel for the tires. If they feel like they're kind of getting choppy, hopefully you can afford it. Get it in somewhere. Get it checked out, because you don't want something happening in the winter. I mean, you don't want it to happen anytime, but I would prefer my vehicle breaking down in the summer than the winter. So just specifically getting that feel for those tires, both front left, front right, or driver, passenger, can get you to hopefully catch something before it becomes a giant disaster, specifically.
Fair enough. So on top of keeping your vehicle in tip-top shape and making sure that you don't break down, unless of course you're driving the Ford, we all expect that to break down. Just getting ready for winter storms, right? So monitoring the weather forecasts, listening to Jeff's updates on the podcast or in Discord, because he puts them on there quite often, and just planning accordingly, because again, 'tis the season now where big storms coming through that could impede your ability to get to and from work or to and from wherever it is you're trying to get to. It might even just change your mind on not going out to do the thing that you want to be doing, because there's a really bad winter storm coming through and it's just difficult to travel through. So just keep an eye on that. I know we all kind of keep an eye on that already throughout the other seasons, but especially in the wintertime, because it really can impede your ability to get around. So a little extra attention, especially on the Discord, because Jeff's all over it. A little extra food and water, essential medication. Go for
Advice on the water. Water freezes in winter. If you replace it with whiskey, it doesn't freeze, but it is nice and chilled for when you break down. You can just enjoy it.
You heard it here first, folks. Water freezes. Who knew? But that is a good time now to check your vehicle for the bottles of water that you may have left, because they will freeze.
Yeah.
And possibly the container might crack open. And then when they thaw later, the inside of your car will be washed. That's the bonus, I suppose.
What I tend to do when that starts cooling down, Home Depot, Canadian Tire, Home Hardware, all those stores have those little tool bags go on sale for $4 or $5, get 2 of them for $10, whatever. I'll throw those spare water bottles, a Gatorade, a Pepsi, a Coke, root beer, something for sugars, just in case you're feeling off or whatever. Just bring one of those, and I put it by the door when I get home. When I leave in the morning, I grab it from the door, put it in, so it never freezes, but it still stays in that nice regular temperature. I find that's an easy way. They're fairly inexpensive, fairly heavy duty in comparison to everything else you're going to get. Those bags you buy at any store now, because you can't have plastic, they tear easily and all that. But just those, they're pretty much contractor bags. You can get them fairly cheap. And that's what I tend to do, is just have one of those. I keep my batteries for my tools, my tools in them, hot, cold, thaw, unthaw, kind of messes with the electronics in it and the motors and blah, blah, blah. So even if it's 2 trips, might save you a headache when you really need that bottle of water.
Yeah, I do exactly the same thing. I have a small duffel bag that sits by the door. And I mean, if I'm just zipping around town, I don't bother to take it. But if I'm going anywhere of any distance, I take it with me. Yeah. You can call them whatever you want. I call it my go bag because it goes when I go, and it's got that. It's got a couple of bottles of water. It's got some protein bars. It's got, depending what time of the season it is or whatever. Sometimes I've even got extra clothing in there, like extra mitts or hat or something like that. So, it's small and.
Yep, it's something you can grab, throw over your shoulder. Ideally, you want it one bag, not make 6 trips back with everything. But just something that's an easy way to make sure you have water, not get halfway to work and realize you didn't grab. I didn't grab extra this, extra that. Something you can keep by the door is ideal, I find.
It makes sense that you don't grab it if you're just putzing around town there, Jeff, because I can always come rescue you with my truck.
I mean, we would say Terry, but it's a
just to get a jab at Jeff, because we don't want to jab at Terry all the time.
I'm happy that I got a bit of a break there, and somebody's picking up Jeff.
Jeff and his Toyota. Yeah.
Something I would like to touch on real quick. We mentioned it's also coming up. You check maintaining car battery. A lot of people just look at it and be like, "Oh, it's not corroded." One of the best things for if you've got corrosion on your positive of your batteries, one of the best things to clear it off, hot water, like boiling water, pour it on. It pretty much dissolves, clean it up, get some sealant on it. Fairly inexpensive for pretty much everything you've got here. A load tester. So a lot of batteries in nice weather work fantastic. But the second the cold starts, a lot of batteries are rated with cold cranking amps, which is battery gets cold or whatever. Fairly inexpensive to buy a tester, and it's not complicated. You hook up, it's got a red and a black, positive, negative, and you hit a load button, and it tells you, it puts a certain load on it, and it'll tell you that if it starts getting cold or the battery draws down a little bit, that it might not be able to restart your vehicle. Fairly inexpensive to buy. Strongly recommend it. Princess Auto has them, probably AutoZone, like all the places have them. Your antifreeze level, you might get some flack depending on people change it this time, that time. You can get testers for them. So when your vehicle is first thing in the morning is ideal for this, not after a long drive. Pop your radiator cap, your whatever, and it's normally just a ball valve, squeeze, stick it in a thing, it soaks up a bunch of it, and it'll tell you the temperature rating, saying if it's going to get, below -20, this might actually freeze into ice blocks. Fairly easy way to do that. Also fairly inexpensive. Yeah, doing those things can help you, if you're out of town in a vehicle and you get a cold snap and now you wake up in the morning, your battery won't start, or all your antifreeze froze overnight and blew your rad hose, whatever. Could be a giant disaster. Fairly easy. YouTube it, but like I said, it's exactly how I said. Load tester and antifreeze checker, very self-explanatory. Would be good. Summer, I wouldn't worry. I mean, you could do it. Fall, spring would not be a bad time to do it, but fall very specifically, making sure your antifreeze level is not dissipated to the point where it's going to freeze if we get, a regular -20 weather. At least here.
Point. Yeah, a good point. And that's not part of a vehicle that a lot of people will even pay attention to or check, because we're so used to just starting them and going, and they work. And except for Terry and Jeff, and can you identify the Chevy owners in the group? Yeah. But let's cycle over to a little bit of first aid stuff, shall we? So another big thing for winter preparedness is refamiliarizing yourself with hypothermia prevention, or even just how to treat it if you do come across somebody with it, or you get it yourself, right? It's definitely a wintertime thing. So
it's a thing.
It's a thing that happens in the winter or in cold weather. So ways to prevent: obviously dress in layers, use moisture wicking materials to stay dry. Layers is huge thing in the wintertime, especially if you're out and about, because you can add layers, you can take away layers, and keep yourself warm. Carry some emergency supplies with you, some fire starters, basic shelter, and just being ready to treat that hypothermia, because it's definitely a thing that you'll see more often in the wintertime than you do in the summer, because it's caused by cold, right? So yeah, break out those first aid books, do a little research, and just a quick refresher on some of the things that can happen in the wintertime. Food and water storage for the wintertime. Again, shocking. You heard it here first. Water freezes. So
whiskey does
around
not.
With you, but whiskey does not. So, or if you want something that looks exactly like water but isn't, vodka.
That stuff stuff tastes weird. Whiskey's the way to do it.
Yeah, but I agree. Whiskey is the way to do it. But just having a look at your storage, having a look at what you carry with you, either in your vehicle or what you've got at home, and just make sure you've got a little bit of extra to get you through if you end up stuck for a couple of days because the weather has gone a way that you weren't expecting it to. Checking out your outbuildings as well, your garages, your sheds, that kind of stuff. If you got your prep stored in there, just going through and making sure that everything is closed up. You've gone through and made sure that mice aren't going to be able to get into your stuff, or tried to protect it as much as you possibly can. Anyways, those little buggers still find a way in sometimes. But checking the outbuildings and the sheds and the garages and all of that to make sure that they're all ready to rock and roll for the winter time as well is something you should definitely be looking at now, if not a little bit before we've touched on the topic. But and then rotating and replenishing your supplies. Again, I usually like to do that kind of stuff around the season changes, just because I'm already in the mode of switching into a new season. I may as well check the supplies that I've already got, replenish the ones that I've used over the past season, rotate what I currently have, use it, put some fresh stuff in the stores. But doing it before the winter time is a really good idea, because again, you can get into those times that you're really stuck, and at least you'll have all your preps and your stores and your food and your water and everything all revitalized and ready to go if you need it.
Yeah. Real quick, someone did mention, so hairspray works as a battery, cover your battery connections to help prevent corrosion. I've never tested that, but I'm probably going to try that. And then, so yeah, anything to keep corrosion off. is key. Corrosion will cause draws on battery and not getting all the amperage and those cold crankiness, all that. And then right below that, use dielectric grease. Someone uses dielectric grease. So dielectric grease is the best stuff in the world. Can be fairly expensive. There are alternates to it. So dielectric grease is pretty much a water barrier between electronics and anything else. Is, I guess, the easiest way you can use it. It's anything electrical. So I have a truck, I have a 7-pin, I have a 4-pin. Cramming some dielectric grease on those things, anything that can be exposed to salt, water, slush, time over time, that's going to cause corrosion. And now when you go to take your camper out or you're going to hook up to your trailer because something either in the winter or spring, whatever from now, doing those things where just coating everything in dielectric grease, it just seals all the water out. Is definitely something you can do. Anything that you might have electrical stuff that could be exposed to any weather things, definitely worth covering, because yeah, that's just going to help you in the summer, but doing it now is ideal. You're on mute, Eric.
Thank you. So I haven't done that in ages.
Yeah.
So power outages. Again, it's something we should be preparing for no matter what season it is that we're coming into. But more so, it can have a little bit more of an impact on you in the wintertime versus the other seasons, just mainly because of the bitter cold temperatures that we can get into. So making sure that your generators are in good working order, batteries, if that's how you're going to power things, are topped up and ready to go. If your solar setup is operating the way that you expect it, if you're using solar, and I have in here, but I'm a little bit later than Pierre was mentioning carbon monoxide. So we've got it in there twice now. So somewhere Alan is just smiling, ear to ear.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I mentioned it twice. But and just ensuring that you've got proper ventilation. If you are running those generators, you want to make sure that the carbon monoxide is not in your house and it is properly venting where it should be venting. Some kind of rechargeable lights, again, hand crank flashlights, hand crank AM FM radio, all those sort of things, making sure that you're ready to go for a power outage, because they do happen a little bit more often in the wintertime, depending on where you're at and what type of wiring you have, whether it's underground or above ground will make a difference there as well. But you do see a lot more, at least I find in this area, a lot more power outages throughout the winter, because you end up with people that drive their cars and then end up in the power posts and then knocking those down and taking the power out and all that kind of fun stuff, right? So, but yeah, just making sure all those things are ready to go. And then the mental preparedness part, right? We talk about that quite a bit on the show. You got something here?
Yeah. Just before we keep going,
sure.
Fuel stabilizers.
Yes.
It's
Good
so we were
call.
talking backup generators, this, that, whatever you might use, fuel, everything, fuel stabilizers. So that utilizes fuel, more diesel than fuel, I find, but extreme cold weather, specifically for diesel, will turn it to like almost a gel. So if you've got jerry cans of diesel because you got an old tractor that does your driveway and all that, preparing those dosages, getting those jerry cans, getting the machine ready. Don't just pour it in and I'm good. If it's in the machine, I recommend, driving it around a little bit, get some swoosh ash in that gas tank and letting it run a little bit so it fills up in those lines and gets in the injector pump. And similar to, if it's a jerry can, just pick it up and shake it. But yeah, doing that just in case it's a crazy cold weather. You don't want, more so diesel than gas, but getting, trying to pour some diesel in something to keep it running, and it comes out a little bit like slushy. So doing those treatments now, and if you replace them, when you replace it with fresh stuff, doing the same thing, it will definitely, hopefully, cause you a lot less headaches.
And on that, I do it every few gas tanks. in my truck, I throw a bottle of gasoline antifreeze in there. You never know when you're going to get condensation. You're going to get water in the fuel from the gas station, whatever. Yeah, the last thing you want is it's like we always say, it's minus 30, and all of a sudden now your vehicle won't start because your gas lines are frozen. So I do that. In my go bag, actually, I have a small bottle of lock de-icer.
Oh, Alan's rolling over now.
So even though my truck has auto start and I could start it up and let it warm up, and hopefully that might free up the locks if they're frozen, but other people don't. I always carry a small bottle of lock de-icer.
Yeah, and okay, before we go, lock de-icer, everybody's like, oh, lube up locks. It's a company I work for. We have a bunch of locks on stuff. And everybody's like, oh, I put some WD-40, some lube of any sort. I'm sort of against lubing locks of any sort, because lubing anything keeps a little bit of moisture. And then if the wind picks up, dirt is attracted to the lube. So now you're putting a bunch of sand and dirt and everything's, but doing proper maintenance on locks is key. So prior to this, even your house keys, maybe having a lighter in your pocket all the time so you can warm the key up, just depending where the weather goes. But yeah, be very careful on using lube on your locks. Lock de-icers get you out of a jam real quick. I just tend to have a spray bottle of isopropyl, 99% alcohol. Pretty much does the same thing. Less lubricant in it, dries up a little bit better. I haven't seen anything bad. Maybe I'll get some flack for it, but yeah, I do tend to refrain from lubricating locks that you're going to leave outside in the elements. I will bring them in, lube them, make sure they work, and then clean all the lube out and then put them back outside, just for those specific reasons that lube does tend to attract any particles in the air when the wind's going, right before the winter. And now you got frozen dirt in your lock, not just ice. Makes it very complicated.
As Justin says, when all else fails, the ball peen hammer works well.
Ooh, it's true.
Let me tell you.
So wherever Alan currently is, he has undone his rage quit, I'm sure.
Yep.
Oh, that was the best.
That was the best.
So I got just a couple quick things to throw in there. I think we sort of talked about it, but good idea to check your house over for any damage over the summer. I'm thinking most specifically missing shingles, things like that. We said it before, make sure your furnace or your other heat sources in proper working order. Ensure you have extra fuel, gas, propane for your generators. I don't know if we touched on it too much, but if you have a snowblower, go over your snowblower. Make sure it starts, Pierre.
Yes. Don't be like me and being a snowbank for 3-4 hours, frozen to shit because your carb was all gummed up. Yes, do that.
Yeah. Check your snowblower over. Make sure it runs. Check the belts. Nothing more frustrating than having a belt go when you're in the middle of trying to clear your driveway because you didn't check your belts. Make sure you've got spare shear pins. Very important. A lot of people don't think about that.
Until the shear pins are missing.
Yeah. It breaks and you don't have another one to fix it. And and I think that's about all extra stuff I threw in there.
Okay, so you mentioned shear pins. My snowblower has bolts, and the bolts are grooved. You tighten them, and they're designed to snap there. If you can't get some, you can put a regular bolt in there. But you also have to understand that shear pins and anything that's designed to break is designed to break so you don't damage the snowblower, the machine, four-wheeler, whatever you use. So if you can't find the proper bolts, shear bolts or whatever, you could put a nut and bolt through it. I strongly recommend being pretend it's a newborn and you don't want to, like your first kid, you don't want to drop it. You don't want to pick its arm up and dislocate a shoulder. Like, be very mindful, just get you out of a jam, but do your best due diligence to do that. And we all talked about, hey, make sure everything's good for the winter. Make sure all your summer stuff you do so that you're not rebuilding stuff in the spring. Your leaf blower, if it's gas specifically, lawnmower, weed whacker, all those things, make a day of it, say, okay, all this stuff is going away. Make sure all that's good, put it away. Take your snowblower and all your winter stuff out and make sure all that's good, make a day of it, or make appointments and get it done. I mean, technically the summer stuff, if someone else is doing it for you, you could wait, but yeah, if you're gonna practice a skill and do it yourself, definitely do that now.
So we need to take a vote.
Yep.
And we need to decide if we're going to kick somebody out here or not for a comment that was made. Justin, as a Texan, I have no clue what a snowblower is.
We can forgive him for that. We can.
I suppose we can.
So
yeah,
Texas did vote Orange Man, so he's kind of got an extra notch, right?
And he can always come up here in January too, if he,
wants to come on up in January. So
open invite. If you want to find out what a snowblower is, come on up. We'll show you.
Yeah,
and you can stay.
Let you practice with it.
Yeah, we'll let you. So it's similar to a lawnmower, but it does that with really heavy snow and throws it a lot further. It's the best way.
That works.
Yeah. But just don't forget, you're taking all your winter stuff out. Maybe take your summer stuff and do your things so you don't have to worry about it in the fall or in the spring. Sorry.
Yeah. To his defense, he says, "Remember, I do have to deal with 110-degree summers." That is true. You can have them. I will take the colder weather over 110 degrees. So
I've been in Texas when it hit 110.
We were 104 this fucking year. Like, we were 6 Fahrenheit off from him. Like, what's that? An extra drip of sweat down your crack? Like, that's nothing. we got some fucking bullshit summers too. All right,
here we go. Pierre's getting fired up.
Yeah. Fuck, 110. Fuck, we had 104, 106 for fucking a week straight. So like, take that, no.
All right, we'll touch on one other thing that I've got on the list here. Just mental preparedness for winter isolation. Right, that's going to be a thing. Not only is it dark out like all the time now, right? But then you got the snow to deal with, the cold, garbage temperatures to deal with, and people just don't
and the fact that it gets
do as
dark
much as they do in the winter.
PM.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's just
it's dark by 5 p.m. and you're spending more time in the dark than the light. You don't get your vitamin D and
Yep. Exactly. It's just being ready for that, right? Oh no.
Oh,
Pierre's adding his whiskey. Here we go.
This is Scotch though.
Scotch, even better. Great.
Folks need to mentally prepare themselves for that first winter drive in the snow too.
That too. Yep.
Lots of folks don't think about it. Maybe
plan
the
for that
couple of trips you take.
And plan for that annual all-season tire meet in the ditch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and that's going to cause delays on your way home or going to the grocery store. Maybe a grocery store is not, a 4-minute walk from your house. Maybe you do need to drive a half hour to get to a grocery store, and that's the thing that can happen, even on nice days. Right? Accidents happen in the summer, maybe more in the winter, but nice, gorgeous day, not even sunny, and somehow 2 cars are in the ditch on the highway, and it's shut down. It gets worse in the winter, so
it does. 100%, it does.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts that any other panelists want to get out there that we haven't touched on yet?
I'll say real quick, whatever your secondary source is, whether it's propane, wood, gas, diesel, obviously do your best due diligence, stock up on it as much as you can. If it's propane, double check your tanks to make sure they're not going to be expired. Planning for your vehicle. what's the most typical scenario other than zombies and Walking Dead scenarios? Is it travel home from work? How far is it? If your vehicle breaks down, emergency shutdowns, all those things. Something we haven't specifically mentioned for tonight, but we always mention, have some cash in your pocket. You get somewhere, you might need a hotel or Airbnb or bed and breakfast, something. We've all seen the system go down where debit doesn't work, or some guy just stops to give you a hand because you drive a Ford and you're in the ditch. Hey, here's $20. Here's just right. Something. Obviously they probably didn't stop with that intention, but pushing that forward, saying like, hey, thanks, and you give them the $20, and maybe that guy, goes forward and pays it forward and decides to pay for Tim Hortons order from the person behind him. All those things, try and, I'm not saying people, but keep people good. And yeah, that's about all I wanted to add in.
No, fair enough. Anyone else? See, Justin in the live chat here just mentioned that he has listened to the podcast for quite a while and glad he finally found the YouTube channel and can watch live. We have faces for podcasts, not YouTube, so sorry you got to watch us. But
I mean, I'm still trying to figure out why you've listened to it for a while and only found it now. But that's a discussion for the next podcast when you find us again.
All right. Any final thoughts from panel before we move into the podcast challenge?
Did we cover throwing a shovel in your vehicle in case you do get stuck? I don't know if we touched on that one, but
we didn't touch on it specifically. But good point.
So shovel, salt, sand, cat litter.
Yep.
If you get stuck, whatever, that will help for traction. You can go real fancy and buy those car mats that you can take out and do whatever. If you drive a rear-wheel drive vehicle, obviously adding some extra weight, probably not the best for fuel economy. You might go, less 70 kilometers on a tank of gas, but getting some weight in the back. So yeah, maybe throwing a few bags of sand, a few bags of salt, cat litter over that rear axle will probably help, and could help if you're just spinning a little bit, get you a little bit of traction. So, and shovel in case you gotta shovel your way home from the Ford breakdown.
Oh man, there's that Ford comments again.
And we do have a really good reminder here. It only says Facebook user for whatever reason. We don't have your actual name here, but it says don't forget the can openers.
Yes.
Valid point. Fantastic point.
Yes.
You should also check your trampolines and make sure that they are in good working order.
Yes.
Asteroids.
Yeah.
Asteroids might happen in the wintertime.
And we've all seen that video, or I'm assuming we all have. The guy that has a warmer in his truck for his lunch, and he throws a can of beans in there, and he stops for lunch, and he takes the can out, and he's like, "Holy crap, that's hot!" And it blows up, and he's covered in boiling hot beans. Yeah, that could be a thing. So a can opener might have helped alleviate some of that pressure inside that can. So that's smart.
Good point. Good point.
Yes, sir.
All right, with that, let's move into the podcast challenge. So podcast challenge for this episode is just, if you don't have a secondary way to stay warm, find one and just put it into practice. All right, upcoming events. We'll let you run with that one, Terry.
Okay, well, we flag this every week about the annual Preppers Meet for 2025, which is July 10th to 13th, so save those dates. Location is Slovenian Hunters and Anglers Club near Alliston, Ontario. And here's an important thing coming up here, so be sure to turn into the Canadian Prepper podcast on Sunday, December 1st for an exciting announcement about this year's Preppers Meet. So this is going to be our first big announcement of the 2025 meet, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, you'll be excited. I guarantee you.
Nice. I already know.
Awesome. Don't squeal.
I won't.
All right, Jeff, you got a weather blurb.
Sure. So as Eric mentioned before, I'm very frequently on the Discord with the weather stuff because we're only here once a week and things happen and things change. So if you follow the Discord, you know that I've been updating the tropics. On Raphael, it was a long time coming storm. It was very short, but it was very different storm in terms of development, track, intensity that I've basically ever seen. It took a long time to develop. It allowed the cold front. I call it a cold front. Other weather people will call it a dry line or a ridge to intensify, and that actually helped to steer the hurricane. It was in the tropics. It did come north. Anybody who follows any hurricanes or anything, they always want to gain latitude. They always want to go north. You always see them. They make right turns. They go north. They very rarely go south. So while Cuba got hit with a low end Cat 3, once it entered the Gulf, I thought, okay, here we go. And it came in contact with that cold front that was so strong it actually stymied the hurricane's attempt to gain latitude. And it's just kind of been spinning in the Gulf. It's now down to a tropical storm. It'll be a depression soon. Believe it or not, it got into the Gulf and never made landfall. It's been spinning around in the Gulf for like 5 days. So good thing for Justin. At one point there, it was looking at Texas. It was looking at New Orleans. It was maybe looking over towards the Texas Panhandle. But yeah, this was just one of those really, really bizarre storms. It seemed like every day I was saying, oh, sorry, folks, I told you this yesterday, but now today it's doing this. But so, yeah, it was bizarre. But having said that, that very strong cold front obviously caused a dramatic drop in temperature. And that's what led to the full-out blizzard that I was talking about in my news article there. Places in basically southern Colorado, so places like Limon, Trinidad, not Trinidad Tobago, Trinidad, Colorado, they got 3 to 4 feet of that heavy wet snow. So as I said, it brought down trees, it brought down power lines. Interstate 25 was closed for 36 hours. So nobody was going in, nobody was going out. Travel was almost impossible, even for four-wheel drive vehicles. So again, it's that time of year. BC, so Ian country, you're looking at another atmospheric river for next week. You're looking at some pretty high winds, some heavy rain or snow, depending on your elevation. So be prepared for that. And yeah, it's that time of year. Anytime now, we're all going to be shoveling.
Yep,
it's true. Well, with that, I'll bring episode number 252 of the Canadian Prepper podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or really your favorite podcast app. We're pretty much out on all of them now. Please do submit a review wherever you do listen. It does encourage the algorithm to kind of sort of promote us until we get shot back down again. You're muted, Jeff. I'm not the only one tonight.
It was your fault. You did it first. We do record these shows live on YouTube, Facebook. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That gives you an alert when we are going live. Anybody wants to reach out to me, it's feedback@prepperpodcast.ca, or as I've said more times than enough tonight, I'm frequently on the Discord.
You can find me off the wall customizing, I don't know, somewhere, or off the wall customizing at Gmail. I'm occasionally on the Discord. The odd time I do comment stuff. Or you can find me Monday nights critiquing the government and potentially a little more explicit on the other CPP Canadian Patriot podcast on the YouTubes 9-ish.
9-ish. So it's like us.
Yeah. We're way more consistent here than the other one, but it's
And you can reach me at the annual Preppers Meet Facebook page or my emails at terrylblackmore@hotmail.com.
All right. You can check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com. You get me there on the live chat. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. Well, thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
And keep learning. And if you're in Southern Ontario around London or Woodstock and you hear thunder and you're thinking you're fooling yourself, you're not. There's some pretty good storms going through right now. I didn't think they would leak across the border, but they have.
Good to know.